He gave 3 women unlimited wealth to expose their true hearts. But the one who spent the least would cost him everything. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Noir Crown Stories. If you're new here, we dive deep into stories of passion, power, and the dangerous games people play with hearts and empires. Before we begin this intense journey, please hit that subscribe button and smash the like icon. It truly helps us bring you more captivating stories. And drop a comment below telling us where in the world you're watching from. Are you team loyalty or team ambition? Let us know. Now settle in. Turn off distractions. This story will take you from the glittering heights of power to the shadowed corners of the human heart. This is the story of how a mafia king learned that the most dangerous weapon isn't a gun, it's trust. The rain hammered against the bulletproof windows of the Moretti Tower like accusations refusing to be silenced. 40 stories above Chicago's darkened streets, Dante Moretti stood motionless in his private office, a crystal tumbler of bourbon untouched in his hand. At 34, Dante commanded an empire built on steel, secrets, and strategic violence. The legitimate face. Moretti Industries, real estate conglomerates and tech investments. The shadow. Operations that moved through the city's veins like poison through blood. Arms deals in abandoned warehouses. Money laundering through offshore accounts. Protection rackets that kept entire neighborhoods under his thumb. The Chicago underworld knew 3 rules. Don't cross Dante Moretti. Don't ask questions. Don't ever make him repeat himself. His reflection stared back at him from the rain-streaked glass. 6'3", broad-shouldered, with dark eyes that had witnessed too much and forgotten nothing. A scar traced his left jawline, a reminder from his father's enemies, delivered when Dante was 16. The night he stopped being a boy and became a weapon. He wore a black 3-piece suit, perfectly tailored, no tie. His dark hair was pushed back, still damp from the earlier confrontation with the Calabrese family. That meeting had ended with blood on expensive Italian marble and a message sent across state lines. But tonight the violence felt hollow. Behind him the office door opened with a soft click. "Boss," came a gravelly voice. Marco, his underboss and the closest thing Dante had to a friend. The shipment from Montreal cleared customs. The Polskis are asking about the weapons deal. And your companion is waiting in the penthouse. Dante didn't turn. Which one? Veronica. A bitter smile crossed his face. Veronica Castellano. Supermodel, socialite, daughter of a rival crime family attempting to broker peace through seduction and strategic marriage. She was beautiful in the way art was beautiful. Perfect to look at, expensive to maintain, cold to touch. Tell her I'll be late. She won't like that. She never does. Dante finally turned, his dark eyes meeting Marco's. How long have I known you, Marco? The older man frowned. 20 years. Since your father brought me in. And in those 20 years, have you ever lied to me? Marco's expression hardened. Never. Not once. Not once. You know that. Dante nodded slowly, moving toward his desk. On it sat 3 files. 3 women. 3 tests. Then tell me the truth now. When people look at me, what do they see? Marco shifted his weight, uncomfortable. Power. Respect. Fear. Not a man. Not Dante. Just the position I hold. Boss. It's a simple question, Marco. The underboss exhaled. People see what you let them see. You've built walls so high nobody knows what's behind them anymore. Maybe not even you. Dante picked up the first file. Inside was a glossy photograph of Veronica, raven hair, emerald eyes, a smile that had graced magazine covers worldwide. Beneath her photo, a detailed dossier compiled by his security team. Her spending habits. Her social circles. Her carefully curated Instagram feed with 3.2 million followers. She'd been in his life for 8 months. She called him baby in public and barely looked at him in private. She wore his gifts like trophies and introduced him to photographers as my Dante, while texting other men when she thought he wasn't watching. He did watch. He always watched. The second file belonged to Isabella Lauron, his executive assistant. Brilliant, efficient, devastatingly competent. She'd worked for him for 3 years, managing his legitimate empire with ruthless precision. Black pencil skirts, blood-red lipstick, eyes like a hawk analyzing prey. Isabella knew things about him that could destroy empires. She'd covered for him, lied for him, cleaned up messes that would have ended careers. She was indispensable. She was also ambitious. He'd intercepted emails to competing firms, seen her LinkedIn messages positioning herself as the woman behind Dante Moretti, watched her network at galas, dropping his name like currency, building her own empire on the foundation of his. The third file was thin, almost insultingly so. Elena Vasquez, housekeeper, 27 years old. Originally from a small village outside Mexico City. Came to America at 19 with nothing but determination and a work ethic that could shame machines. She'd been cleaning his penthouse for 14 months. She arrived at 6 a.m. every Tuesday and Friday, moved through the space like a ghost, and left everything immaculate. She never asked questions. Never gossiped. Never looked at him longer than necessary. He knew almost nothing about her. 6 months ago he'd come home unexpectedly and found her crying quietly in the kitchen. Phone pressed to her ear, speaking rapid Spanish. He'd caught fragments. Mama. Hospital. No tengo sufficient dinero. Without being asked, he'd transferred $50,000 to her account that night. Enough to cover whatever medical crisis had broken her composure. The next morning she'd been waiting in his office. She'd tried to return the money. All of it. Mr. Moretti, this is too much. I cannot accept this. I will work extra hours. I will pay you back. He'd refused. Told her it was a bonus. Insisted she'd take care of her family. She'd looked at him with eyes full of tears and something he couldn't name. Then she'd bowed her head and whispered, "Thank you. I will never forget this kindness." That moment had haunted him for months. Because in a world where everyone wanted something from him, she'd wanted to give something back. Dante closed the file and looked at Marco. "I'm going to run an experiment." "What kind of experiment?" "The kind that exposes the truth." He pushed the 3 files across the desk. "Each of these women will receive access to unlimited funds for 1 week. No restrictions. No questions. I want to see what they do when they think no one's judging." Marco's eyebrows rose. "You're testing them." "I'm learning who they are when the mask comes off." "And then what?" Dante's expression darkened. "Then I decide which one deserves to know the man behind the monster." The black Amex Centurion cards were delivered in identical velvet boxes, each accompanied by a handwritten note on Dante's personal stationery. To Veronica, "Consider this a token of my affection. 1 week. No limits. Show me what makes you happy." D. To Isabella, "Your dedication has not gone unnoticed. 1 week of freedom. Spend wisely or foolishly, the choice is yours." Dim. To Elena, "You've given more than you've taken. Let me return the favor. 1 week. Please accept this gift." Dante Moretti. Each card was linked to an account with no ceiling. Each transaction would be monitored, recorded, analyzed. Not just the amounts but the locations, the choices, the patterns that revealed character. Marco had assembled a discreet surveillance team. No phone taps. No invasive cameras. Just financial tracking and public observation. Dante had been clear. He wanted truth, not violation. The cards were delivered on a Monday morning. By Monday afternoon the spending had begun. Veronica, Day 1. The first transaction appeared at 11:47 a.m., $8,750 at Saks Fifth Avenue. By 2 p.m. she'd hit Cartier, $34,000 diamond bracelet, Hermes, $22,000 limited edition Birkin bag, and Gucci, $12,500 fall collection preview. Her Instagram stories exploded with content. Unboxing videos with squeals of delight. Mirror selfies with shopping bags artfully arranged. Captions dripping with hashtags. #blessed, #luxury life, #treat yourself, #designer addict, #living my best life. One video showed her laughing with her girlfriends at a champagne brunch. $4 200 bill. As she waved the black card at the camera. When Bae says, "No limits," You believe him. Love you, baby. Kiss emoji. Heart emoji. Money bag emoji. The comments flooded in. Relationship goals. You're so lucky. Can he adopt me? She didn't tag Dante. Didn't call him. Didn't thank him directly. By evening she'd booked a private cabana at the most exclusive beach club in Miami for the upcoming weekend, $15,000, and purchased first-class tickets for herself and 3 friends, $28,000. Total day 1 spending, $127,450. Dante watched the reports come in from his office, his expression unreadable. Marco stood beside him. She's treating it like monopoly money. She's treating it like validation, Dante corrected quietly. Watch. It'll get worse. Isabella's first transaction was more calculated. $3,200 at a high-end professional photography studio. By evening, Marco's team had confirmed she'd booked a personal branding photo shoot. Executive leadership portfolio, complete with hair, makeup and wardrobe styling. Her second move was strategic. $8,500 deposit for a VIP table at the annual Chicago Business Summit, an elite networking event where Fortune 500 executives mingled with venture capitalists and political players. She purchased a new wardrobe, not designer labels but powerful pieces. Structured blazers, statement jewelry, leather briefcases. Everything curated to project authority. She booked a suite at the Peninsula Hotel. Not for leisure but because the hotel was hosting a private mixer for tech investors the same week. Her LinkedIn activity spiked. New posts about seizing opportunities, betting on yourself, and building your empire. Several messages to contacts mentioned exciting new ventures and independent projects launching soon. One email, intercepted by Dante's cyber team, was particularly revealing. I've been grooming this opportunity for 3 years. The Moretti name opens doors but I've proven I can close them. By Q2 I'll have my own firm. The sharks won't know what hit them. IL. Total day 1 spending, $24,700. Dante read the email twice, his jaw tightening. She's using you as a stepping stone, Marco said bluntly. She's using the credibility I gave her to launch her own empire, Dante replied. Smart. Disloyal but smart. Elena's first transaction didn't appear until 6:47 p.m., $83.50 at a local grocery store. Marco's team reviewed the receipt. Rice, beans, canned vegetables, chicken, tortillas, milk, diapers, baby formula, children's vitamins. Her second transaction, $450 at a medical clinic, paying outstanding bills for 3 families in her neighborhood. Her third, $200 cash withdrawal at a bodega, which she was observed distributing to homeless individuals outside a subway station. She stopped and spoke to each person, shook hands, offered dignity with the dollars. At 9 p.m. she visited St. Michael's Community Center, a struggling shelter in her neighborhood. She donated $5,000 directly to their operating fund and spent 2 hours serving dinner to the residents. One of Marco's observers reported, she sat with the people, listened to their stories. A kid spilled juice on her jacket, probably her nicest one, and she just laughed and cleaned him up. Didn't flinch. At 10:30 p.m., Elena returned to her small studio apartment in a modest neighborhood. No luxury purchases. No celebrations. No social media posts. Total day 1 spending, $5,733.50. When Marco delivered the report, Dante stared at it for a long time without speaking. Boss. Marco prompted. She spent less in 1 day than Veronica spent in 1 hour, Dante said quietly. And every dollar went to someone else. Dante stood abruptly, walking to the window. Below, the city glittered with greed and ambition. Somewhere in those lights, Elena was probably already asleep, unaware she'd just shattered every assumption he'd made about human nature. Keep watching, he said, his voice rough. All 3 of them. I need to see this play out. Because for the first time in years, Dante Moretti felt something he'd thought was dead. Hope that maybe, just maybe, one person in his world wasn't playing a game. By day 5, the patterns had crystallized into portraits of character that no amount of wealth could disguise. Veronica's empire of excess. Veronica's spending had accelerated into a frenzy of consumption that would have impressed Caligula. The Miami trip expanded into a full weekend extravaganza. Private yacht rental $45,000, VIP bottle service at 3 nightclubs, $38,000, a spontaneous photo shoot with a celebrity photographer $15,000, and designer swimwear for her entire entourage, $22,000. She'd purchased a vintage Rolex, $87,000, because it matched her aesthetic, then immediately listed it on a luxury resale site for $130,000, using Dante's money to fund her own business venture. Her Instagram had become a shrine to excess. Every post, every story, every carefully curated image screamed the same message. Look at what I have. Look at who I am. Worship me. But it was what Marco's team observed on day 4 that truly revealed her nature. She'd taken her friends to an upscale restaurant, Le Bernardin's $6,800 bill, where she'd sent back 3 dishes for being pedestrian, and berated a waiter until he was visibly shaking. When he spilled water while refilling her glass with trembling hands, she'd laughed and filmed it. "This is what happens when you hire incompetence," she'd said to the camera, her friends giggling beside her. "Some people just aren't meant for the good life." The video had 47,000 views and hundreds of comments praising her honesty and standards. The waiter was a 19-year-old kid working 2 jobs to support his younger siblings. Total 5-day spending, $487,250. When Dante reviewed the footage of the restaurant incident, something cold and final settled in his chest. "She's cruel," he said flatly. Marco nodded. "She's a narcissist who sees people as props in her performance. And I'm the biggest prop of all." Isabella had transformed the week into a masterclass in strategic networking. The business summit was just the beginning. She'd booked private dinners with executives from Dante's rival firms, $12,000 in relationship-building meals where she positioned herself as an independent consultant, with unique insights into the Moretti operations. She'd invested in a professional website, IsabellaLaron.com, featuring her portfolio testimonials, and a carefully worded bio that mentioned her work with Dante but framed it as preparation for independent leadership. She'd purchased a premium membership to an exclusive business club, $25,000 annual fee, where Chicago's power players made deals over cigars and scotch. Most damningly, she'd been observed meeting with Vincent Calabrese, son of the family Dante had clashed with weeks earlier, at a discreet wine bar. The meeting lasted 2 hours. They'd shared a bottle of $800 wine and left in separate cars. Marco's tech team had intercepted a text she sent afterward. "The asset is ready to move when you are. My terms stand, 40% equity, C-suite title and full autonomy. He trusts me completely. This will be seamless." Dante read the message 3 times, his knuckles white around his phone. "She's selling you out," Marco said, his voice dangerous. "She's been building relationships with your enemies, using your money to fund her betrayal." "She's brilliant," Dante said coldly. "She saw an opportunity and weaponized my own resources against me. In another life, I would have respected that. And in this life?" Dante's smile was blade thin. "In this life, I'll remember it." Total 5-day spending, $118,900. Every dollar an investment in her future. None of it returned to him. Elena's spending pattern hadn't changed. If anything, it had intensified in its humility. On day 2, she'd paid off the mortgage for Mrs. Chin, an elderly widow in her building who'd been facing foreclosure, $34,000. On day 3, she'd visited 3 families she knew from church and quietly covered their rent, utilities and medical bills, $18,500. On day 4, she'd gone to the hospital where her mother had been treated and donated $50,000 to their charity care fund with one request: use it for families who can't afford treatment. No one should have to choose between health and food. She'd purchased winter coats, blankets and boots for every homeless individual in a 6-block radius of her neighborhood, $8,200. She'd restocked the food pantry at St. Michael's, $12,000. She'd paid for music lessons, art supplies and sports equipment for the after-school program where she volunteered, $6,400. And every single day she'd returned to her small apartment, cooked simple meals, and gone to sleep wearing the same worn pajamas she'd owned for years. Marco's observers reported something that made Dante's chest tighten. On day 5 she was observed sitting on a park bench with a homeless veteran. She'd brought him lunch, a sandwich she'd made herself, not purchased. She sat with him for 2 hours. Just talking. Just listening. When she left, she hugged him. He cried. Another report. She was offered a designer handbag by a boutique owner who recognized the black card. She politely declined and suggested the boutique donate their samples to a women's shelter instead. She connected them directly and followed up to make sure it happened. The final detail that broke something in Dante. Elena had kept a small notebook where she tracked every dollar spent. Next to each entry she'd written names. Not her name. The names of people she'd helped. Mrs. Chin home saved. She can stay in the apartment where her husband's memory lives. Rodriguez family, kids can stay in school. Maria gets her medication. St. Michael's children won't go hungry this winter. Miguel veteran, reminded him someone sees his service. Someone cares. Total 5-day spending, $129,100. Every dollar accounted for. Every cent spent on others. Nothing for herself except the quiet satisfaction of knowing she'd mattered. When Marco delivered the final reports, Dante sat in silence for so long his underboss started to worry. "Boss. She's real," Dante whispered, his voice cracking on the words. "In a world of performers and predators, she's real. She never thought to spend it on herself. Not once." Dante looked up and Marco was shocked to see moisture in his boss's eyes. "She's what I've been looking for my entire life. Someone who sees past the money, past the power. Someone who just cares." "What are you going to do?" Dante stood, his decision made. "I'm going to do something I've never done before." "What's that?" "Tell the truth." The private dining room at Moretti Tower was designed for intimidation. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A table that could seat 20 but tonight held only 4. Lighting that made everything feel like a stage. Dante had orchestrated this moment with the same precision he applied to his most dangerous operations. Veronica arrived first, dripping in new jewelry, her dress a scarlet statement of confidence. She kissed his cheek, her perfume expensive and suffocating. "Baby, this is so mysterious. What's the occasion?" "Patience," he said coolly. Isabella entered next, every inch the professional. Navy suit, heels that clicked with authority, hair pulled back in a severe bun. She nodded at Veronica with barely concealed disdain. "Dante. This is unexpected. Sit." Then Elena arrived, escorted by Marco because she'd initially refused the invitation. She wore a simple navy dress, probably the nicest thing she owned, and looked terrified. Her eyes found Dante's, full of questions and worry. "Mr. Moretti, I don't understand." "Please, Elena. Sit." The 3 women sat, the contrast between them almost painful. Veronica radiated entitlement. Isabella projected calculation. Elena embodied discomfort. Dante remained standing, hands in his pockets, his dark eyes moving between them. "Thank you all for coming," he began, his voice quiet but commanding. "I'm sure you're wondering why you're here." "Is this about the card?" Veronica asked, a hint of worry creeping into her voice. "It's about truth," Dante replied. 7 days ago I gave each of you unlimited access to my resources. I told you it was a gift." Isabella's eyes narrowed. "And?" "It was a test." The room temperature seemed to drop. Veronica laughed nervously. "A test? Dante, that's a little dramatic, don't you think? I needed to see who you were when you thought no one was watching." He pulled out a remote and activated the screen behind him. "I needed to understand what you valued." The first image appeared, Veronica's Instagram feed, a collage of excess and vanity. "Veronica, You spent $487,250 in 5 days. The images cycled through her purchases, her parties, her performances. Designer bags. Luxury vacations. Bottles of champagne that cost more than most people make in a month. She shifted uncomfortably. You said no limits. I did. And you showed me that you have none. No restraint. No gratitude. No consideration for anything beyond your own pleasure. The screen shifted to the restaurant footage. You humiliated a teenager for sport. You filmed his pain for entertainment. Her face flushed red. He was incompetent. He was human. And you treated him like garbage. Dante's voice was ice. You showed me that behind the beauty is something ugly. Something I want no part of. How dare you? I dare because it's my money you spent. My trust you violated. We're done, Veronica. Collect your things from the penthouse. You have 48 hours. She stood trembling with rage. You're going to regret this, Dante. My family. Your family is welcome to try. My lawyers have already drafted the separation agreement. You'll find it generous, which is more than you deserve. Veronica looked at the other women, seeking allies, finding none. With a strangled sound of fury, she grabbed her purse and stormed out. The door slammed behind her. Dante turned to Isabella. Her expression had hardened into something unreadable. Isabella. $118,900 in 5 days. Impressive. I used it wisely, she said carefully. You used it strategically. Business summit. Professional photo shoots. Networking dinners. The screen showed her purchases, her meetings, her carefully constructed ladder. You built a foundation for your own empire. Is that a crime? No. Ambition is admirable. The screen shifted to her text messages with Vincent Calabrese. But selling information about my operations to my enemies? That crosses a line. The color drained from Isabella's face. You've been my assistant for 3 years. You've had access to everything. My schedules. My deals. My vulnerabilities. Dante's voice was dangerously soft. And you've been auctioning that access to the highest bidder. Dante, I can explain. The asset is ready to move when you are, he quoted her own words back to her. 40% equity. C-suite title. Full autonomy. Those were your terms to Vincent. She stood slowly, her composure fracturing. You have no idea what it's like. Working for you. Being brilliant and having people only see me as your assistant. I earned the right to build my own. On the foundation of my trust? Dante stepped closer. You could have left honorably. Started your own firm with my blessing. I would have been your first investor if you'd asked. But instead you chose betrayal. What are you going to do? Her voice shook. You're fired. Your access is revoked. Your NDAs are being enforced. Violate them and my legal team will destroy you. And Isabella. He leaned in close. Vincent Calabrese is currently in FBI custody. That seamless deal you were planning? It was a federal sting. I've been feeding him false information through you for months. Her face went white as bone. You knew. I always know. The question is whether you're smart enough to disappear before the agents come for you as a co-conspirator. She didn't run. She walked, her heels clicking rapidly toward the exit. But the confident woman who'd entered was gone, replaced by someone who'd just realized she'd played a game against a grandmaster. The door closed. Silence fell. Elena sat frozen, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. Dante turned to her, his expression softening. Elena. Please, she whispered. I didn't mean to do anything wrong. I tried to use the money for good things. I kept records. I can show you. I know exactly what you did. The screen changed one final time. Images of Mrs. Chin crying with relief. Children at St. Michael's wearing new winter coats. Families receiving groceries. The homeless veterans smiling for the first time in years. You spent $129,100. And every single dollar went to someone else. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I couldn't spend it on myself. It felt wrong. There are so many people suffering. While Veronica bought jewelry and Isabella built her escape plan, you built hope. Dante sat down across from her, his dark eyes intense. Do you know what that says about you? She shook her head, overwhelmed. It says that in a world of takers you're a giver. That you see people, not opportunities. That your first instinct isn't to elevate yourself but to lift others. I'm just trying to be decent, she whispered. No. His voice was firm. You're extraordinary. And you don't even know it. Elena looked up at him, confused and frightened. Why did you do this? Why test us? Dante leaned back, the weight of years evident in his posture. Because I'm tired, Elena. Tired of performances. Tired of people who see my wallet instead of my face. Tired of waking up alone in a room full of people who would sell me out for the right price. I would never. I know. That's why you're still here. He reached across the table, gently taking her hand. She flinched but didn't pull away. I wanted to find someone real. Someone who would choose kindness over greed. Compassion over ambition. Someone who could see Dante, not Don Moretti. I don't understand. I'm asking you to give me a chance. Not as your employer. Not as the man who gives you money. As someone who wants to know the woman behind the quiet strength. Her eyes widened. Mr. Moretti. Dante. Please, just Dante. I'm your housekeeper. I clean your floors. I'm nobody. You're the only real person who's walked through my door in 10 years. She pulled her hand back, standing shakily. This is crazy. You're Dante Moretti. I'm Elena from a village so small it doesn't have a name on maps. I didn't even finish college. I live in a studio apartment with second-hand furniture. We're from different worlds. Then show me yours, he said simply. Because mine is killing me. She stared at him, tears streaming now. Why me? Because when I gave you everything, you thought of everyone but yourself. Because you sat with a broken veteran and gave him dignity. Because you kept a notebook of names, not to brag but to remember. Because in a city full of people who want to take from me, you wanted to give back. Elena covered her face with her hands, shoulders shaking. Dante stood slowly, approaching her like she was something fragile and precious. I'm not asking you to love me. I'm not even asking you to trust me yet. I'm just asking you to let me prove that not everyone in my world is a monster. She lowered her hands, looking up at him. And if I say no? Then I'll respect it. You'll keep your job if you want it, or I'll write you a reference that will open any door in this city. No pressure. No retaliation. Just gratitude that you reminded me what goodness looks like. The silence stretched between them, heavy with possibility. Finally, Elena spoke, her voice barely audible. One dinner. Just a talk. Somewhere normal. Not your world. A smile broke across Dante's face, genuine and young. Anywhere you want. There's a taco truck near my apartment. Tuesday nights. Best food in Chicago. Then Tuesday it is. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I should go. This is a lot. Marco will drive you home. The bus is fine. Elena. His voice was gentle but firm. Let me do this one small thing. Please. He hesitated, then nodded. As she walked toward the door, she paused and turned back. Dante. Yes. Thank you for seeing people. Even when you were looking for something else. After she left, Dante stood alone in the empty dining room, the city glittering below him like scattered diamonds. For the first time in years, the view didn't look like a kingdom. It looked like a beginning. The taco truck near Elena's apartment was called Angelita's, run by a grandmother who'd been feeding the neighborhood for 30 years. Dante arrived on Tuesday at 7 p.m. in jeans and a simple black t-shirt. No suit, no driver, no security detail visible. He felt naked without the armor of his world. Elena was already there, sitting at one of the plastic tables, wearing faded jeans and a soft yellow sweater. When she saw him, her smile was nervous but real. You came, she said. I promised. He sat down across from her. What's good? Everything. But start with the al pastor. It'll change your life. He ordered, paid with cash and carried their food back to the table. The tacos were served on paper plates, simple and perfect. The first bite made him close his eyes. Told you, Elena said, her smile widening. They ate in comfortable silence for a while, the neighborhood humming around them. Kids playing. Music drifting from open windows. Life messy and real. This is where you grew up? Dante asked. No. But it feels like home. People look out for each other here. Unlike my world. She looked at him carefully. Your world is just scared. Everyone's protecting themselves from everyone else. It makes people hard. And you're not hard. I've had to be sometimes. But I don't want to stay that way. She took a sip of horchata. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why did you really give us those cards? Was it just a test, or were you looking for something specific? Dante set down his taco, considering. I was looking for proof. Of what? That not everyone is playing a game. That somewhere in my life, there might be someone who sees me and not what I can provide. Elena nodded slowly. And did you find it? Yes. But now I'm terrified I'll ruin it. She laughed softly. Why? Because everything I touch turns to business. Every relationship becomes a transaction. I don't know how to be close to someone without walls. Then start small, Elena said simply. Tell me one true thing. Something you've never told anyone. Dante was quiet for a long time. Around them, Angelitas did its evening business, oblivious to the confession forming in a crime lord's throat. I'm lonely, he finally said. I've built an empire and I'm the most isolated person I know. Elena reached across the table and took his hand. That's the truest thing anyone said to me in years. Over the following weeks they met regularly. Always in her world, never his. Taco trucks and park benches. Coffee shops where nobody recognized him. Movies at the old theater that still charged $5. Dante learned what it meant to be normal. To wait in line. To split a check. To have conversations that weren't about business or strategy, but about favorite books and childhood memories and dreams deferred. Elena taught him how to cook simple meals. Laughed when he burned rice. Showed him how to play cards with the elderly men in her building's courtyard where they mercilessly mocked his terrible poker face. For a crime boss you can't bluff for shit, Miguel the veteran told him. Elena had introduced them, and the old soldier had immediately seen through Dante's careful facade. I usually just shoot people who beat me, Dante replied with a straight face. The table went silent. Then Miguel barked a laugh. I like this one, Mija. He's got stones. Slowly, deliberately, Dante began to let his world meet hers. He donated anonymously to St. Michael's, then showed up to help paint the new children's wing. Elena found him on a ladder covered in yellow paint, arguing with a 10-year-old about the best way to paint clouds. You're doing it wrong, the kid insisted. I'm a billionaire. I don't do things wrong. You're a billionaire who can't paint clouds. Elena had laughed until she cried. He attended the community center's fundraiser dinner, where he sat with families who had no idea who he was and listened to their struggles with genuine interest. When a single mother mentioned she was about to lose her apartment, he quietly arranged for her rent to be covered for a year. Through Elena. Not his name attached. Why don't you want credit? Elena asked him later. Because then it's about me. I want it to be about them. She kissed his cheek. You're learning. But the underworld doesn't forget its kings. 3 months into their relationship, reality intruded. Dante was meeting Elena at her apartment when Marco called, his voice tense. Boss, we have a problem. The Volkov family is making moves. They know about Elena. Dante's blood went cold. What do you mean they know? They've been watching you. They know she matters to you. Viktor Volkov just sent a message. Even kings have weaknesses. Maybe it's time we talked. It was a threat disguised as an invitation. Dante made a decision that went against every instinct he'd honed over decades. He told Elena everything. They sat in her small living room and he laid out the truth. The empire. The violence. The enemies circling like sharks. The danger she was in simply by being close to him. I should walk away, he said, his voice hollow. Being with me puts a target on your back. Elena was quiet for a long time, processing. Then she said, Do you love me? The question caught him off guard. Yes. And I love you. So we figure it out. Elena, these people are dangerous. And you're dangerous too, aren't you? She looked at him steadily. I'm not naive, Dante. I know what you are. What you've done. But I also know what you're becoming. And I choose that person. Even if it costs you. Especially then. She took his hands. You've spent your whole life protecting yourself by keeping everyone at a distance. What if the real protection is letting someone in? What if having something worth fighting for makes you stronger, not weaker? Dante pulled her close, holding her like she was the only solid thing in a world tilting off its axis. I won't let them hurt you, he whispered into her hair. I know. And I won't let them turn you back into someone who's afraid to care. The meeting with Viktor Volkov happened in neutral territory, an abandoned warehouse that had seen more than its share of blood. Dante arrived with Marco and a security team. Viktor brought his enforcers, hard men with cold eyes. Moretti, Viktor said, his Russian accent thick. I hear you've grown soft. Found yourself a pretty little housekeeper to play with. Dante's expression didn't change. Say her name and this conversation ends with your teeth on the floor. Viktor laughed. Threats? From a man in love? Please. Love is weakness, Dante. Your enemies are circling. They smell blood. All because you couldn't keep your dick out of the help. In one smooth motion, Dante drew his gun and pressed it against Viktor's forehead. The room exploded into action. Weapons drawn, safeties clicked off, curses in multiple languages. Dante's voice was utterly calm. You misunderstand the situation. I'm not soft. I'm focused. You want to know what's changed? I finally have something worth burning your entire organization to protect. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to spread the word. Elena Vasquez is untouchable. Anyone who even looks at her wrong will answer to me. And Viktor, I won't just kill you. I'll erase your bloodline. Your children. Your legacy. Everything you've built will turn to ash. Viktor's face had gone pale. You'd start a war over a woman? I'd end a world over her. The question is whether you're smart enough to avoid that. There was a beat of terrible silence. Then Viktor carefully raised his hands. Message received. Dante lowered the gun but didn't holster it. Good. Now get out. After they left, Marco turned to Dante. That was either the bravest or stupidest thing you've ever done. Maybe both. Dante's hands were shaking slightly, not from fear but from the realization of what he'd just risked. But I meant every word. I know. That's what scares me. When Dante returned to Elena's apartment that night, she was waiting up. She took one look at his face and knew. What happened? He told her. All of it. When he finished, she was quiet. Then, you threatened to start a war for me. Yes. That's insane. Yes. And you meant it. Every word. She crossed the room and kissed him, fierce and desperate. Promise me something. Anything. Promise me we'll build something better. Not just safety from your enemies but something good. Promise me that this violence isn't the end of our story, just the middle. Dante held her face in his hands. I promise. Over the next year, Dante Moretti underwent a transformation that shocked Chicago's underworld and business elite in equal measure. He began divesting from the criminal empire systematically. Operations were shut down or sold off. Territory was ceded. Alliances were dissolved. It was a slow, dangerous process. Exiting that world was harder than entering it, but he was methodical. Some called it weakness. Others called it evolution. Marco called it love. You're walking away from billions, his underboss said one night. I'm walking towards something worth more, Dante replied. He channeled his legitimate wealth into a new vision. The Moretti Foundation, but not bearing his name. Elena insisted. If it has your name, it's about ego. If it's anonymous, it's about impact. They focused on the neighborhoods Elena knew, the communities that had been forgotten. Housing initiatives for families facing foreclosure. Scholarship programs for kids who'd never imagined college. Job training centers. Mental health clinics. Food security programs. Elena led every initiative. Dante provided resources and strategy, but she was the heart. She'd quit cleaning houses. Not because Dante asked, but because she'd found her calling. She enrolled in night classes, finishing her degree in social work. She interviewed families, designed programs, held officials accountable when resources were misused. She became a force. The Chicago Tribune ran a feature, "The Woman Changing Chicago's South Side," and she's not a politician. They still lived modestly. Not in Dante's penthouse, he'd sold it, but in a renovated brownstone in Elena's neighborhood. It had enough space for an office and guest rooms for the people Elena constantly invited to stay. Families in transition, women escaping abuse, teenagers aging out of foster care. Their home was chaotic and full. Dante had never been happier. One evening, 2 years into their relationship, Dante found Elena in the garden behind their brownstone. She was planting tomatoes, dirt under her fingernails, hair pulled back in a messy bun. He sat beside her on the ground. "I need to tell you something," he said. She looked up, concerned. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. That's the problem." She laughed. "Explain." "I'm not who I was when we met. The empire is gone. The violence is over. I'm just a man now. A man with a past he can't erase but a future he wants to build. With you." Elena set down her trowel, giving him her full attention. Dante pulled a small box from his pocket. Inside was a simple gold band with a single diamond, elegant but not ostentatious. "This isn't about ownership. It's not about possession. It's about partnership. You've taught me that strength isn't control, it's vulnerability. That power isn't dominance, it's lifting others up. You've shown me what it means to matter not because of what I have, but because of who I choose to be." He opened the box. "Elena Vasquez, will you marry me?" She was crying, hands covering her mouth. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." They were married 3 months later in St. Michael's Community Center, surrounded by the people they'd helped and the community they'd built. No celebrity guest. No media. No designer gowns. Elena wore a simple white dress from a local boutique. Dante wore a navy suit. Miguel, the veteran, walked her down the aisle. The children from the after-school programs sang. Mrs. Chin cried in the front row. When they exchanged vows, Dante's voice broke. "You saved me. Not from my enemies. From myself. I was a king of nothing and you showed me how to be a man of something. I promise to spend every day earning the gift you've given me. To use what I have to build what we believe in. To choose compassion over control. To see people the way you taught me, as souls, not transactions." Elena's vows were simpler. "I choose you. Every day. In every way. Not despite your past but because of who you're becoming. I choose us." The reception was held in the community center's gymnasium, decorated with string lights and paper flowers made by the kids. The food was potluck, contributed by families they'd helped. The music was a local band. It was perfect. As they danced their first dance, to a slightly off-key rendition of La Bamba, Dante held Elena close and whispered, "Thank you." "For what?" "For teaching me that the best things in life can't be bought. They have to be built. One choice at a time. One act of kindness at a time. One day of showing up and trying to be better." She smiled against his chest. "You're welcome. Now shut up and dance." They built a life together that looked nothing like Dante had imagined and everything he needed. They had 2 children, a daughter named Sophia and a son named Marco, after the underboss who'd become family. Elena completed her master's degree and became the director of a citywide social services network. She testified before Congress about poverty policy. She was offered positions in Washington and turned them down. "My work is here," she said simply. "With the people who need it most." Dante transitioned fully into philanthropy and social entrepreneurship. He invested in minority-owned businesses. He bought and renovated abandoned buildings, turning them into affordable housing. He created job training programs that gave people with criminal records a second chance, because he understood that people were more than their worst moments. He and Marco eventually had a conversation that ended one chapter and began another. "You're going soft," Marco said, but he was smiling. "I'm going human," Dante replied. Want to join me? Marco did. The underboss became the director of security for their nonprofit network. His skills in strategy and protection were redirected toward keeping vulnerable populations safe from predators. 5 years after their wedding, Dante and Elena stood on the roof of the first building in what would become a campus of hope, a full-service center offering housing, healthcare, education, and job placement. You know what I realized? Dante said, holding her hand as they watched the sunset paint Chicago gold. What? Veronica spent $500,000 in a week and left nothing behind. Isabella tried to build an empire and destroyed herself in the process. You spent barely anything and changed the world. Elena leaned her head on his shoulder. We changed the world. Together. No, Dante said softly. You changed me. And that changed everything else. They stood in comfortable silence, watching their city transform in the fading light. Somewhere below, a child laughed in a playground they'd built. A family moved into an apartment they'd funded. A teenager worked his first job at a business they'd supported. A veteran slept safely in a shelter they'd established. Small acts of compassion rippling outward. Elena had taught Dante that wealth wasn't measured in dollars but in dignity restored, hope renewed, and futures reimagined. And Dante had learned that the most valuable thing he'd ever owned wasn't his empire. It was the moment he stopped trying to own anything and started trying to give everything. 10 years after the test that changed everything, Dante Moretti stood in the auditorium of the Vasquez Moretti Community Leadership Academy, a school they'd built for kids from the neighborhoods that had raised Elena and humbled him. He was there to give the commencement address. As he looked at the graduates, young people who'd overcome poverty, violence, loss, and systemic failure to reach this moment, he saw himself. Not the king he'd been, but the man he'd become. When I was your age, he began, I thought power was control. I thought success was domination. I thought the winner was whoever took the most and gave the least. The students listened quiet. I built an empire on that philosophy. And it nearly destroyed me. He paused, scanning the crowd until he found Elena in the front row, holding their daughter's hand. Then someone taught me a different definition. She taught me that real power is lifting others. That true success is measured by what you give, not what you take. That the winner isn't the person who hoards the most, but the person who shares the best of themselves. He stepped from behind the podium, speaking directly to the students. You've all been tested by life in ways I couldn't imagine. You've faced challenges that would have broken lesser people. And you're here. You made it. That took strength. A girl in the second row was crying softly. Now I'm going to challenge you. What will you do with that strength? Will you use it to climb over others or to lift them up? Will you hoard what you gain or invest it in your community? Will you become what the world told you to be, or will you show the world what you choose to be? He looked at Elena again. She was smiling, tears on her cheeks. Someone once showed me that the greatest test isn't what you do when you have everything. It's what you do when you have the chance to take everything. And the greatest success isn't becoming powerful. It's staying human while you build something powerful. The applause started slowly, then built like thunder. After the ceremony, Dante and Elena walked through the campus they'd built together. The school. The clinic. The community center. The gardens where kids grew vegetables and learned about sustainability. The art studios. The technology labs. The safe spaces for kids to be kids. Do you ever regret it? Elena asked. Giving up the empire? The power. Dante stopped walking and pulled her close. I gave up an empire of fear and gained a kingdom of purpose. I traded power over people for partnership with them. I lost nothing and gained everything. Even the danger. The violence. The threats. He touched her face gently. Even those. Because they taught me what I'd fight for. And what I'd die for. And more importantly, what I'd live for. Their daughter, Sophia, ran up to them, her graduation gown trailing behind her like a cape. Daddy. Mrs. Chen wants to take a picture with you. Tell her I'll be right there, Princessa. As Sophia ran off, Elena laughed. Mrs. Chen still remembers when you paid off her mortgage. She's never let me forget it. He smiled. But she also taught me how to make proper dumplings. So we're even. They continued walking hand in hand, through a campus full of people who'd been given second chances, first opportunities, and the radical gift of being seen. You know what the best part is? Dante said. Tell me. I used to wonder if anyone would ever love me for me. Not my money. Not my power. Just me. He stopped and turned to face her. You answered that question the day you tried to return $50,000 and told me you'd pay me back. I was terrified of owing you. And I was terrified of never being owed anything real. Of never mattering to someone beyond what I could provide. He kissed her forehead. You taught me that I already mattered. I just had to become someone worthy of mattering to. Elena's eyes glistened. You always were worthy, Dante. You just couldn't see it. I can now. Because you loved me enough to show me. As the sun set over Chicago, painting their world in shades of amber and gold, Dante Moretti realized that he'd finally found what he'd been searching for his entire life. Not wealth. Not power. Not control. But home. And home wasn't a place. It was the woman beside him who'd taught him that the richest life wasn't built on taking but on giving. That the strongest love wasn't possessive but liberating. That the greatest empire wasn't conquered but cultivated. One act of compassion at a time, one life uplifted at a time, one choice to be better at a time. He'd given 3 women unlimited wealth to test their hearts. One had revealed vanity. One had revealed ambition. And one had revealed something he'd never expected to find. The truth that the best things in life aren't purchased. They're earned through the daily decision to show up, to care, and to build something bigger than yourself. As they walked back toward their family, Sophia chattering with Mrs. Chin, Marco Jr. chasing butterflies, Miguel teaching a group of kids how to play dominoes, Dante squeezed Elena's hand. I love you, he said simply. I know, she replied, smiling. You show me every day. And that, Dante thought, was the greatest wealth of all. Not what you say, but what you do when no one's forcing you. What you choose when you could choose anything. Who you become when you're finally free to be yourself. The test had ended years ago. But the love it revealed? That was eternal. Thank you for joining us on this powerful journey through love, redemption, and the true meaning of wealth. If this story touched your heart, please smash that like button and subscribe to Noir Crown Stories for more intense, emotional tales that will keep you captivated. Drop a comment below. Would you have passed Dante's test? What would you have spent the money on? Let's discuss in the comments. Remember, the greatest riches aren't found in bank accounts, but in the hearts of those who choose compassion over greed, giving over taking, and love over power. Until next time, keep choosing love even when the world chooses violence. This is Noir Crown Stories signing off.